Hey, what's up? The Octatrack is my favorite sampler. I think I'm liking it more than the Dig Attack these days. I'm sorry. That kind of hurts me to say too, to be honest. Let's have a cozy jam before I get into it, and we'll do a beat breakdown to explain some of what's going on in terms of my reasoning here. Before we get into it, all of these samples are from the Plant Music and Granular Performances sample pack by Evidence of Yesterday on Splice. And that's part of what I wanted to talk about here during the beat breakdown. But first, let's just break down the elements of this track. So I want to get started with a breakdown of this first pattern. And the main component filling up the frequency spectrum is this nice rich pad. And I have an LFO, an inverse exponential wave being sent to the pitch. Or sorry, the volume. So we're getting a ducking. That doesn't even go along with the kick, because the kick isn't 4 on the floor. But the pulsing of this pad provides a suggestion of that sort of 4 on the floor pulse. And it's kind of a fun trick to do that, even when the kick isn't playing the same pattern. So one thing I really love about the Octatrack is that it can take stereo samples. And when you're working with really, really harmonically rich content like this, I think it's fantastic to be able to just have that built into the stereo field. And I still love to use stereo effects, the delay, the reverb, they're all really great on the Dig Attack as well. But having the samples in stereo themselves is really a game changer, at least for me. Melodically, the other thing we have going on in the first pattern is this. As you can see, it's pulsing, not unlike the first patch I showed you. And here we have the dark reverb. And the balance is favored pretty heavily on the right. And I have an LFO sent to the dark mix. So the reverb mix is actually pulsing in tandem with this, and then I have another LFO being sent to the amplitude volume of the sample itself on track 4. And this is working opposed to the reverb mix, so you get this sort of like panned pulsing. And that, with the kick and the snare, really make up the bulk of that first pattern. This is the next thing that I really love about the Octatrack, is the fact that you can build such complexity with your arrangements really quick. Just by like sending LFOs in rhythmic variations to different parts of different tracks and different parts of the same track, you can build rhythm within a single sample. This is the sample that we have set down for track 4. That's all it is. It's just one trig. Let's talk a little bit more about track 2, the snare track. I'll just play it through and have you watch. So yeah, it's a bunch of trig locked stuff. There are some trig repeats, parameter locked, different sounds are parameter locked. I added an extra kick there just for fun. I use track 2 very heavily as like my bass snare track on the Octatrack, but I also like to parameter lock other percussive sounds in there and just pan them every which way on the stereo field. Again, you can do this with the Dig Attack, so this isn't particular to the Octatrack or any other sample really, but that's just how I tend to use it. I'm not going to explain my hi-hats and cymbals. They're pretty straightforward. But yeah, the whole pattern sounds like this. course the crossfader, because like, I'm not going to really get into it, but for those of you who may not be as familiar with the Octatrack, you can basically set parameters to this scene over here by holding and pressing and switching the scene with any of these keys. And then while you hold this, you can basically turn a knob on any of these pages and it will parameter lock those settings to the scene. So for example, in scene 10, I have track 3. Where is it? Oh yeah. So on this scene, I have the bit crusher, the lo-fi setting, which is essentially a bit crusher. The way I've used it here, I have it cranked and zeroed out on this scene, cranked on this scene. So it's really cool for transitions. I have to say though, my favorite part of this track is the second pattern and the intro to the second pattern particularly. So let's go to this track. It's track 7, and I'm going to talk about how I chopped up this sample, or these samples, because it's more than one sample, and assigned it to this track. But let's just listen first. Oh man, I got to tell you, this is why I love samplers in general. I genuinely feel like they kind of just feel like a whole new instrument when you get new samples. It really allows me to sort of hyper fixate and have a short attention span at the same time, because I can download a sample pack. I have 200 samples. I don't really know any of them that well, and I can just kind of scan through them, group them in the same key, and then I know that if I pick a spot and find a good rhythm within that small chunk of time, I can put it on a trig where I want that rhythm to happen, and magic will be born. And it's a lot more work than that. It's not that easy, but that's the general premise of my workflow, is finding samples in the same key. And a lot of these samples are like 2+ minutes long. It's a really great pack. Anyway, let's take a look at the sample, and I'm going to hop into another track that doesn't really have any effects or anything too crazy on it. I just want to play back for you the samples I'm using. So this is time stretched, but you can hear it's the same sample that makes up that sort of meat and potatoes of the first pattern, and that's doing the... And you might hear I have reverb parameter locked to some of those trigs, so you can hear it ring out and then get cut off. That's a fun trick to kind of mess with the perceived spaciousness of the track, and it's just good glitchiness. We're going to come back to that sample because that's on track 3 for this pattern. So this is where those piano strikes are sampled from. I think this is a gorgeous sample. And again, this is time stretched, so it sounds a little wonky when you play it back on that trig, but again, we're working with this and this. And we got this. So yeah, really magical that you can maintain the integrity and the sort of sonic direction and intention of the samples themselves, but in no way, shape, or form do I believe I couldn't release the song as my own because it's using samples. You know, they're so removed in terms of chord structure, melody, progression from what the actual original long form samples were, that it's different, and they're all combined and swapped together, so it's really cool. It's like each sample is just a note on a string of a guitar, and I'm playing them in different patterns and arrangements to make my own shit. Anyways, let's talk about the sample on track 3. I really, really like this sample and how it kind of interplays melodically and harmonically with the rhythmic sample that I have here. So let's just take a listen to 3. So this sample, admittedly, I didn't change that much. You can hear it here. Again, it's time stretched there, but the way it interplays with this, so this sample 3 is going to be panned to the right, I believe. Yep, the balance is positive 21 cents to the right. So listen on the right side, hear how it interplays with this. So when you have just this playing, and then you end up adding in the rest of the harmonic content, when the percussion comes in, it really adds an extra layer of harmonization, which I think is really fun. And then I have a little pad kind of going here. To be honest, I can't even remember what sample that is because it's so filtered and messed up, but I want to show it to you with this pad because these kind of add as like the background textures that are panned. And listen to those textures with the percussion. Right, that's really cool, and it's such a different vibe from this. But like all together, it gels so well. And like there are so many melodies going on at the same time, but they're all distinct, but it's still really like spacey and full and rich. I don't know. This piece was one of those things that just came together super quickly for me. The vibes were strong, and my brain was in the right headspace to be excited about a new sample pack, to jump into using the Octatrack after having kind of been using the Dig Attack a lot recently. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm biased. Maybe the Octatrack is my favorite sampler at this very moment because I've just had such a good time arranging this piece. And oh, of course, I didn't even talk about the Crossfader on pattern 2. But I have this nice like band pass reverb assigned to scene 10 with the reverb cranked on the melodic components. So you can like bring it in and fade it out like that. And then high pass with a pretty nice resonance, which is always super fun. And then my typical low pass. Yippee, y'all. I don't know what else to say. I hope you enjoyed this beat breakdown. I hope you enjoyed the song. If you found this at all interesting and want to learn more about the Octatrack, Dig Attack, Digatone, etc., check out my Patreon. I have a bunch of different tiers with different perks there. You can take lessons, you can get some free sample pack downloads. And if you want to chat about music, just to say, hey, tell me about your dog, tell me what you had for breakfast, head over to my Instagram. It's just @slowhaste. And if you're into this type of content, definitely let me know in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That shit makes me happy. So thank you as always for hanging out, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.